Before we kick this off, we lost a valuable member to our organization yesterday. Glenn Dirk passed away, a longtime scout here, 29 years. Gave his heart and soul to the organization. So our condolences to the entire organization, send our condolences to his entire family.
Thanks, Fitz. Obviously, yesterday was a very long day for you, for your staff, for your players. What was your overall impressions of your exit meetings, and what was your overall message to really your core group of players?
Well, it's nice to hear some thoughts. I'm very curious on where their mindset was this year, where it's at now, and where it needs to go. So I asked a lot of questions. Some different questions for different people. I'm not asking the younger players on our organization the same as I asked the older players and more experienced players. But really just, wanted to see truly and sincerely how disappointing this season is for everybody in this organization, starting with me. We don't want this to happen again. But with that being said, there's a lot of things that have to happen. We do have a lot of talent on this team. Extraordinary amount of talent. We are a fast team. When we think and play quick, we're a very fast team. But it's just, this isn't, the maturity of this team has to continue to grow. And that's everyone. It's challenging themselves. It's taking the next step in leadership. And I'm not just talking about the guys who wear letters, but there's another level that we have to get to. And I'm not just talking about on ice. I'm talking about off ice too, as well. Leading the way off the ice. Doing things in the weight room is as important as the extra stuff you do on the ice, whether it's D drills, face-offs for centers, wall play for wingers. It's all encompassing, and we've got to get there. We've got to value those things to make the next step. With that being said, then you get to the on ice. Better details, better habits, practice habits. Are we in the best possible shape we can be in? When you are, the game's easier. It slows down more when you're stronger and you're faster, and you can actually stay out there for a minute and 20 seconds. At 45 seconds, you're at your top peak if you can do that. So that's something where we need to get to. That's a level we need to get to. So overall, there's a lot that we have to put back in place or get in place, value places. But with that being said, this is very disappointing, but it's also very exciting for me personally that I get to put my handprints on this organization moving forward and add to the core that we wholeheartedly believe in, and believe that they're going to grow from this experience and push each other and take the next step in leadership, keeping each other accountable. It's their locker room. What they permit is what they promote. Really believe in this group. So excited about the offseason and where we need to get to and really try to help this core get to the level they need to get to.
Did you feel your players were responsive to that message when you were talking to them?
Absolutely. They've got curious mindsets, they growth mentalities, they want to get better, and sometimes you got to punch people right in the nose and to realize, oh, this is reality. What we got is what we deserved.
How much we talk about injuries and not wanting to make excuses, obviously, but sometimes there is a reality there. How much did losing Dougie, create a trickle-down effect? Obviously, Nemo and Luke got bigger minutes, but where did that really impact your team, you think? Well,
it impacted the entire cohesiveness of what we wanted to do. You look at this year versus last year, and the men's game lost. Completely different. At one point we had $30+ million out of our lineup, and it's not an excuse. It tells you need to lean on other things to be competitive each game, and those are the details and the habits and style play we needed to really be consistent with because of who we didn't have in the lineup. Missing Dougie is he's He's one of the best players in the league at his position for a reason, and he's here for a reason, and it's tough to replace. Now, with that being said, I think the silver lining of all that and some injuries was the amount of growth our younger players, in particular Luke and Simone and Kevin Ball on the back end, invaluable what they've gained in experience with the injuries. We believe there's, like all young players, there's going to be growth. We saw it with Jack, we saw it with Jesper, we saw it with Nico from one year to the next with experience, and we don't anticipate anything less from those three in particular. That this experience will pay forward.
Tom, on the coaching search, what qualities in candidates are you looking at? And then, as for specifics, I mean, is this timeline wise? Is this a pre-draft decision, and just things like that?
Well, great question, and the reality is that yes, I'd like to have something in place before the draft. That gives me flexibility with the available candidates, including Travis. And hey, you don't know what could shake out after the first round either. I want to take my time with this, but I have specific areas that I want to check, boxes that I want checked. One, they have to be an excellent communicator. Negative feedback, positive feedback, but feedback, constant feedback. The players crave it. They want it. Communicating upwards, communicating with management, being able to communicate with our managing partners for questions and feel comfortable in that situation. Lots of feedback, like I said, positive and negative. So communication is a big one. Someone who's collaborate, who wants to collaborate with all different areas of the organization, in particular me, someone who understands and where I think the team needs to get to, and how do we do that. Players that we will need, we work together. I'm not a dictator. I work with everybody. I think I'm very collaborative with information, and use all that information to try to make the best decisions I possibly can as the manager. Someone who, when I talk about collaboration, that is using the things that are at our fingertips, analytics for decisions in personnel or strategy on how we want to play. Sports science, it's to me, it's real. It's there now, where we can use the information from the equipment that we use to gauge where our players are at in practice and what kind of practices we need. And when we can push and when we have to pull back. So someone who believes in that and will utilize that is one. And then lastly, accountability. A coach who is going to keep every player, not just a handful of guys, accountable. If you don't have accountability, you really don't have the building blocks to a championship caliber team you want to get to, in my opinion. And with that being said, we need players who understand accountability and want to be held accountable and want to be able to, and should be able to look in the mirror and say, you're right, I got to be better. And this isn't good enough. And that may be, like I said, it may be not enough time in the weight room, just checking a box there and just doing it versus, no, you get in there, because that is as important as the face-offs, and as an example. So yeah, those in particular areas are what I'm looking for, and I think this organization deserves that.
And what about Travis's tenure gives you confidence to give him a serious look here, as you mentioned?
Well, and Travis is well aware of my intentions, and I owe it to the organization to make sure I scour the coaching world with who I believe would be the perfect coach for this group moving forward, for what's available out there. Travis, I've known Travis a long time, but I didn't know him as a head coach. He came in as an assistant, completely different roles. Who your responsibilities, who you're dealing with on a daily basis versus being the head coach. I liked what I saw of Travis. I think he checks a lot of boxes. I think he's a no-nonsense head coach. I think he's very open, and players know where he stands and his thoughts, and that's important. But like I said, and Travis knows this, it's my responsibility to make sure that every stone is unturned or turned over.
You obviously understand how pivotal of an off season this is. I guess how much pressure, be it internally or whatever, do you feel entering this summer? And what's your message to fans, as to why they should have confidence in the decisions you're about to make, especially you talk about, the big game hunt for the goalie and things like that?
Well, I think I've done a really good job building this team with the help of my predecessor before and bringing the right pieces. When we look back at the decision on bringing Lindy Ruffin as the head coach to do certain things with the young lads that we had and grow them. I know we did that. This is the fun part. Like I'm actually so excited about this because I know exactly what this team needs. I know exactly what these individuals need. I know what they want, and they crave that excellence. I've got David Blitzer and Josh Harris's full autonomy to make decisions, the right decisions for where I think this organization needs to go, and that's with internal people and pushing players the right way and understanding how to get to the next level because we need to get to that next level, and we've made commitments to an abundance of players, and I've have a commitment, and I know exactly what my duties are. There are areas that I know we need to upgrade now, and my job is to go out and find those people and players to help. So I'm very confident. I believe last year was no fluke. I think that was a team. Will we ever get 112 points again? I hope so. But that's not the standard. The standard is, how we conduct ourselves, how we practice every day, how we play every day. I always say this, and you've heard it before, is let's not put the cart before the horse. We can have all the talent in the world, but if we're not willing to put in the work, the effort, and the energy, and the passion, it's all for nothing.
You've mentioned, with Allen at the deadline, how it was, the no trade or no move clause and things like that. That was the reason that you couldn't get him earlier. But do you look at how he and Capo have played since the deadline, and do you think to yourself, maybe I could have gotten one of those done sooner?
Sure. In hindsight, yeah. But then I said this maybe I did say at the deadline. It's called the deadline for a reason. That's when teams leverage the most out of a return because it's the 11th hour. So if deals were easily made earlier, I think you'd see a lot more deals made. You just don't. That's the reality of a deadline. But with that being said, like Jake Allen had some hesitation on coming to New Jersey. And I think part of my responsibility and as I became the manager of this team is to shift the mindset of this is a really good place to play, and we'll show you. You have to come and see it and experience to understand it. And now that we've attracted the Dougie Hamiltons and the Pallats and held on to Timo Meyer and a guy like Jake Allen sees this place differently and is extremely excited about moving his family here and understanding where we are as a group, and he's super excited. I think my group internally has created this, has helped create New Jersey to be a destination. And our players obviously are big help there. But it is a destination. And I think I have to tip my hat to my group for knowing how to sell it, the players for pushing this place to being a place where good players want to come. And that's where we're at.
In your talks with Capo yesterday, given how well he's played, is that a player that you might give a fair shot after how well he did in his audition, so to speak? And do you have any thoughts on the other upcoming free agents that are expiring?
Well, I can't really talk about any other player until their contracts expire on June 30th. I can talk about ours, and Capo came in. When you come in from another organization and you think you may think you know what other organizations are like, and when you hear the feedback from players that are new, and whether it's our sports science department, our athlete care department, the way our coaches handled them, how we practiced when they got here, and things that they worked on that maybe they didn't work on. Well, I know they didn't work on, because those were the feedback. It becomes a place like this could be the right place for me. Capo, I thought he played really well when he came in. It's just something I told him. He and his agent, his agent and I will speak, to see where he's at. But again, it's my job to make sure I know what exactly is going to be available before I make decisions on UFAs.
Is another decision that's going to have to be made this summer the status of some of the assistant coaches? Will there be some turnover there or anything?
Well, I want to get through the head coach process first. But again, I'll remind you, these are the same coaches that had 112 points last year as well, and these are the same coaches that helped grow, our younger players to, Jack to a 100-point player, and they're the same coaches. I'm looking for continuity. Every year when you have a down year, a great year, you don't just get extensions when you have great years either. Okay? So it works both ways. I will, once I kind of pick through whoever that next head coach is, what he's looking for and assistants, we'll have a say in that. But we have really good people.
Do you have an update on what Seamus Casey might do?
If I was a betting man, I would say he's probably leaning towards turning pro. But, with that being said, we talked to him right before the national championship weekend. He wasn't sure. There was no pressure at all from us. And to me, when you forfeit, the rest of your college career, you need to be more than 2 feet in the water. You have to jump right in, and you have to really want this. Any hesitations, then it may not work. So we're going to give him all the time he needs.
Tom, I'm not sure if this is something you'll reveal, but is there a priority pecking order of positions when you look at your roster that you feel is a priority as far as how you're going to go about things in the offseason?
Well, I think what we do is we evaluate what we have internally. We have some UFAs that we will discuss. Is there a fit at what position? And whether it's a forward, where do they fit? But I absolutely have no plans to rushing anything with our UFAs. We will go through internally with my group, my personnel group, my leadership group, on what we need. Where do we need to get better in certain areas? Like I said earlier, I believe in this core. So how do we build around these guys, and how do we become a team with the identity that we want? Then with that, you project the possibilities of who could be a UFA, and then talks with other managers who possibly could be available that checks the boxes that we want to add to our organization. We have one goalie under contract other than our 2 young kids, so an area where I'll definitely continue to explore.
Travis just talked about, he mentioned explaining to the players and describing a 200-foot game, how important that is. And my question to you is, do you think there's a difference between playing to score and playing to win? And at times this season, did you kind of see an unbalance, let's say, in that area?
Great question, and it's real. It's a real question. Like, because of how well everything went last year, coming back, being down, fighting to get that extra point to get to overtime, our overtime record, things went well. And those aren't things you planned for. They just went well. Different story this year. But with that being said, I felt, because there was a time I did speak to the team, and I just said, we cannot outscore our mistakes. No team can. You have to have a base and a foundation of commitment, playing away from the puck, understanding how to be harder to play against. And that doesn't mean what everybody assumes it means. It's just staying on top of guys. Where I thought we strived last year was our quick break, our quick transition, odd man rushes. Well, teams played us a lot differently this year because they knew what would happen if they didn't. We have to figure out how to break through that. How do we counter? How patient do we need to be versus being all in off every single rush? That's experience. Things weren't easy for this group this year as they easier as last year, in my opinion. I think teams played us differently. But at the end of the game, at the end of the day, scoring goals is what you need to do to win hockey games at the right time. But it's okay winning 1-0. Last year, beating the Stanley Cup reigning champs, Colorado, 1-0. You have to be willing to do that, and you have to be patient, and you have to sometimes make the other team make the mistake, so you can counter with the amount of skill and the amount of firepower that we believe we have. But you have to be willing to do that, and you have to be strong in every other area to get those opportunities. So that's where we need to get to.
Last year, we talked so much about this leadership core and this group learning about playing in the playoffs and playing to win. What's the biggest improvements and the biggest lessons that this leadership group, especially Nico, Jack, those players that wear the letters, and also some of the other guys, that they learned this year?
It's a hard league. It's a very hard league, and every team you play is playing for the same thing, to be the best they possibly can, make the playoffs, scratch and claw to get in, and eventually, hoist that cup over your head. So, to me, it's going back to that commitment. Are we committed to do the right things? We say the right things, but are you willing to do the right things? And that, to me, is maturity thing, and understanding that it is a hard league. It's not a switch that you turn off and on where we can play a certain way. You have to be consistent in your game. And to me, it starts in practice. And it starts day one of training camp. What's the message? How we're going to practice? Every drill has a purpose. And you do things habitual. It just becomes a habit. Whether it's, maybe it's not an odd man rush, but we have a middle lane drive, a puck from the wing. It's outside the dots. You've never beaten a goalie. If you do, it's a mistake. It's a bad goal. Get it to the pads. Crash and bang. Line up at center ice because you went to the dirty areas. Those are habits that we have to get to. And it starts in practice, and it starts with just repetition. And it has to be early in the season, because as the season goes along, practices become limited. Numbers in practice become limited because of wear and tear. So it's going to be demanded from day one.
Fitzy, you mentioned this already, but the team last year, the roster wasn't that much different from this year, maybe injuries or such, but what lessons can you learn from other organizations, whether Vegas misses the playoffs, come back, win the Cup, St. Louis misses the playoffs, comes back, win the Cup, Tampa had some setbacks, the lessons you can learn from other organizations, how they took maybe one step backwards but then sprung forward?
You've got to be – it's a hard league. From one year to the next, there's no guarantees of making the playoffs. So you've got to be a team that understands what training camp means, the start of your season. No one wants to play catch up, because eventually you run out of runway, and that's not the way you want to play. Last year when you have a 13-game winning streak and the amount of points we banked was obviously crucial for the end, because a lot of people don't talk about the 7-game losing streak we went on in January. But with those points we got early on, it just kind of it never became a topic. But internally, it was unacceptable. So consistency. This year was a year we didn't find consistency. I think we won 3 in a row once, maybe. You can't you can't make the playoffs like that. I just think the mindset has to continue to grow on be unflappable. It doesn't matter if team scores open and shift. It doesn't matter. You just keep believing and doing the right things over and over and over again. And those teams that you talked to, they're very experienced teams. You know, they have a lot of experience. So experience is huge. We're still the sixth youngest team in the league, and that's not an excuse. It's time that this young team matures into understanding what the teams that win actually do to get to hoist the cup. And I know we will, and that's what I'm excited about because of the core group and how hungry they are and how, you know, just starving they are for that, and understand that this is a very hard league each year.
You mentioned obviously getting the points early. A lot of the guys mentioned that early, getting the points early on in the season last year allowed them to kind of have a little cushion, if you will. And speaking with Palat, one of the things he mentioned was after they got swept, they had the President's Trophy, all that, and got swept by Columbus. They actually rethought how they played the game. And is that part of the growth, too? I mean, here's a team that won a President's Trophy, gets swept in the opening round, and still kind of went through the hard work of reevaluating everything they did, and then came back, obviously, a few years later to win back-to-back cups.
For sure. You know, that's growth. You know, like when things, I don't want to say were easy for them because they won X amount of games and get so many points to win that trophy. It wasn't their goal. Their goal was to win a Stanley Cup. They fell short. Again, I can't speak to what happened there other than I'm sure they were pissed off, angry, you know, upset, but also understanding that it wasn't good enough for however they were doing things. And pushing each other, pushing individually and pushing one another every single day to be the best player can be. You know, I'm looking for guys who want to drag people into the fight on the ice, and I'm looking for guys who want to drag people into the weight room because that's important. That's what I'm looking for.
Fitzy, one thing to come out of this year will be a draft pick that does look like it's likely to be in the top 10. With where you think this team is in the window, are you looking at that more as a chance to draft a really good young player and prospect, or are you looking at that more as a valuable asset that you can use to acquire a veteran right now?
I'm not looking to give it away, but I'm also willing to use it if it helps this team take the next level with a strong player who can really fill a need of where we want to go. If that doesn't happen, then you're banking, a future NHL player that you feel that can make an impact in your lineup.
And then on the coaching search, is the communication things you talked about, is that even more important to you than a specific system? Like, are you flexible on system and style that a coach wants to play if they match a lot of the other things that you were talking about?
It really doesn't matter what kind of system we play. I want individuals to actually follow directions, be committed to it, and actually do it. Because any system works. The breakdowns are when individuals don't want to do it or make a mistake, which is a game of mistakes. But it doesn't matter what system we play. The coach lays out a game plan, the soldiers will follow. If they don't, you have breakdowns.
Tom, you mentioned earlier all about accountability and how you whatever you preach, you promote and everything, and that starts at the top. So what changes do you feel you and your staff need to make in order to have that trickle down to the coaches, to the players, and everyone?
You know, to be honest, I probably have let my guard down on a lot of areas that may not matter up front, but the looser you get, it may be just dress code with people. You loosen it up a little bit, you know the old saying, right? You give an inch, they take a yard. You give a yard, it's be a little tighter. The potential of just keeping people accountable that way, for me, I can do a way better job in that, and I think that'll help create an everyday professional player and an everyday professional hockey ops department that understand that, when you kind of loosen some things, some people take advantage of it, and versus being the nice guy, things are going to change that way.
Just, you've mentioned a lot about wanting players a certain way off the ice, but on the ice, and obviously you can't discuss specific players around the league, but you have a lot of skill, not a lot of size on this team. What type of player on the ice do you want? Do you want a big, guy who can, put someone to the board? What type of player do you want to add to this team to take them to the next level?
I want hockey players, and that can be defined in many ways. But first and foremost, they have to be passionate. They need to love the game. They need to come every single day, punch the clock, and go to work, and actually enjoy it, and then do extra work too, because they love the game, versus just guys who play hockey. There's a huge difference in that. I want hockey players on this team. Our fans deserve those type of players, and those are players that are willing to block shots, are willing to, be comfortable in confrontation. Understand that physicality is part of the game, create an identity, get back to having a momentum line, a line that, or two, that could actually change the momentum of a game. That's what I'm looking for. I think our fans deserve that. I think our core and skill guys deserve that. So, yeah, those are some of the areas I think we need to improve in. That's up to me.
There's been some mentions of conditioning. Is any part of the training programs or staff something that you feel needs to be evaluated this offseason?
Staff, no. I think we have, to be quite honest, I think we're ahead of, I think we're at the top when it comes to sports science and understanding where our guys are at and where we can push them. It's just pushing them and understanding and players accepting it, They get enough days off, that's for sure, through the PA. But when we go to work, we work. I ask you for an hour a day. That's it. So you should be able to handle a really crisp skate in March after a 4 and 5 or 4. Doesn't matter. To me, it's a mindset. So that's where I'd like to get to. I want the game to be easy for our players, and the only way to do that is to be in the best possible shape we can be.
Tom, I know we've seen the releases and everything, but do you have, just from your own perspective, an update on Jack, how he's doing, a timeline update on him? And I mean, with all these past couple of years, we've seen the injuries pile up. Are you concerned about his his injury status? Or
well, first, successful operation surgery. With that, he stayed out in Vail a few extra days to do some rehab. He's back in Michigan, and he will make a full recovery. The time frames differ. Each individual hail differently. But I do expect a player who comes back with a good, a lot of energy, feeling great, excited about the season, and stronger. So no, and I don't worry about. I mean, Jack's a special player. Like, he doesn't get hit very often. There's a reason, because he's hard to hit. So I don't worry about that at all.
I hope you like this question. A good offensive line has always been said can make a better quarterback. Now in hockey, can the defense make the goalie better?
And forwards can make defense better. So it's all connected. We weren't connected this year. We talked about it ad nauseum, about being committed, connected, and being competitive. We chased it all year. And at the start of the year, we were banking points, but we still weren't close to doing the right things on the ice. We were talented enough. Maybe teams weren't in top shape at that time. But we took advantage of it because we were talented enough. And I said it earlier, like, when you have a mentality of outscoring your mistakes, you're going to come up short. You might be able to cover it up for a little bit, but over a long haul, it catches up to you. But I do think it's all connected. Absolutely, we've got to be harder at the net front. That's just fundamentals. It really is. I mean, every kid who plays defense as a kid, you're taught, rather you shovel than hammer down. Get underneath someone's stick, and because if his stick's in the air, he can't get to the puck. So those are areas where we will continue to grow. Will that help our goalie? Sure. But there are also areas where we do a really good job of defending, and some squeakers are held in, and that's disheartening as well. So, maybe our D, we want them to be a little more aggressive, but you can't do that if you don't have a high F3 or a committed forward that is understanding that I've got to be back in case the puck gets out. So we just got to be better focused in that area and more connected.
Tom, are you looking forward to and maybe the trip to Prague is something that might galvanize the group as well?
Oh, for sure. Really looking forward to that. I think this group, one, deserves it. Being asked to do this is I think a badge of honor, because not every team gets a chance to do this. I'm glad we're doing it at the start of the year. Team bonding wise, those things go a long way. When you look back on your season, you go, what a great year. Started in Prague. When we really got together and got to know each other and we're just around each other, not just the players, but management, ownership, entire staff.
Tom, do you plan on tendering all your RFAs qualifying?
Right now I am, yeah.
Tom, one of the things that I felt was missing this year, when you look around, we talked about injuries and things like that, but Michael McLeod was a vital part of this team. And I'm wondering, do you have any hope that you'll ever get him back, or is that something that's tied up in the courts, or what?
Yeah, I can't answer that. I've been, the league, I can't talk about that. But I can talk about Michael. Big loss. It's a big loss. And he was getting better and better and better each day, and you can't replace that. Thanks, guys. Have a great offseason.